with the department for almost 11 years, and I manage the northwest corner of the county. So I have Boot Lake off of County Road 3, Cobus Creek County Park off of County Road 8, Treasure Island off of County Road 16, and then our department, or my team, and various other departments within the county take care of six-span boat launch. So we take care of all the custodial and landscaping and whatever the day calls for, basically. So Boot Lake Nature Preserve, I put some different pictures up. Usually when there's a picture, it usually features the sandhill cranes, which is making use of the top of a muskrat den, and so are the turtles in the center. The other two top shots are of the prairie. The far right are the lupine that bloom first up in the North Prairie, and that variety is a more western variety, so it gets taller, and people are always amazed. I get phone calls, is the lupine blooming? Well, yes. And this is a shot of the big prairie. And I wish this was a shot of a Massasauga rattlesnake, but we haven't found any out there yet. So it's just a eastern water snake, but we will move on. Maybe.
It's, isn't it the side button?
Side, this one?
Yeah. There you go.
Yay! Okay, so until recently, I was the newest member of the Elkhart County Parks family, or I should say Boot Lake was the newest member. Now our newest park is Corson Riverwoods, that's over in Middlebury. It hasn't had its official grand opening yet. They're still dotting some I's and crossing some T's, but I anticipate that opening with some big ceremony this spring sometime. So we have a couple of bike trails that the Pumpkin Vine is very popular, and the Maple Heart, most people don't know the name of that. That runs along County Road 45 from the city of Elkhart all the way to Goshen. This is a map of the preserve. Thought it would be helpful at the beginning so that when I'm talking about different things, you can have an idea of what I'm talking about. This is new property, that and over on the east side. This is the original 160 acres, that orange there. The two wetlands are peaty muck flats. We'll talk about that later. So sometimes I have people come out with a boat in tow. Not happening. When we have a lot of precipitation, I do have visible water out there, but right now it's mostly muck. So, and then most of our infrastructure is down on this south end, and that's because that's the only place where we can build anything. The rest of it's protected. So we have, depending on how you walk it, between 3 and 4 miles of trails currently. So I'll start with some history. The city of Elkhart owned the property originally. They purchased it in 1968 to use as a sludge farm for their wastewater treatment plant. And if you don't know what sludge is, that is what's left after they clean the water that comes from your house. So they would truck, they had no way to remove all of the water from the sludge in the beginning, and so they would truck this sludge out and deposit it into 2 lagoons in that big, what I now call the Big Prairie. And as time went on, technology changed and they were able to get more of the water out. So then it operated for 20 years as a sludge farm. Towards the end, they didn't need the lagoons anymore. There were dry piles out there. And people would go out. Some people went out to hike out there at that time. A lot of people went out to deposit whatever they didn't want at their house anymore. So, yeah. different things started happening in the 1970s. So the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts were passed, the Environmental Protection Agency came into being, and states started looking at their land a little differently than they had in the past. And so the Department of Natural Resources started looking for special habitat areas. And Boot Lake and Buttonbush were determined to be some of those special areas. Like I said, they're peaty muck flats, which is not only rare in our state, but it's rare globally. And there are special animals and plants that go along with that habitat. Sorry, I'm at a bad angle. The city decided about 1990 that they were going to return the property to a natural state and turn it into a nature preserve. So from 1990 to 1993, they removed all of the sludge off of what is now the Big Prairie. You can't just take the sludge though, they removed all the topsoil as well. And so that is why it was turned into prairie, is it's basically pure sand out there and you needed something that could grow on sand. Other things that were happening, the AmeriCorps National Service Program was born in the early 90s, and the city of Elkhart applied for a grant to host an AmeriCorps program within the city with the directive to take this property and turn it into a nature preserve. They were awarded the grant, and in 1994, the first members began. They cleaned, 70,000 pounds of trash up from that and started cutting official trails onto the property. They worked with various groups to have overlooks put in. Eagle Scouts built those, and there was a plastic lumber dock that went out onto the south end of Boot Lake for viewing. I think that takes care of most of that slide. So some of the protected fauna that is out there, these are some of the endangered things. We have the Henslow sparrow, the Blandings turtle, which is found, fortunately, on many of our county properties, and of course the sandhill crane. And I'm hoping that at some point we find the eastern Massasauga rattlesnake. We have the right habitat, and there used to be a population out there, but nobody has seen them in a long time. So I'm hoping this year that we start an official monitoring study, because that would open our property up to more funding for land acquisition to protect more land. These are some of our protected plants on the property. None of these is showy. People come out and go, but botanists really like it. This is the longbeak rush, and Scott Nemesnik, the state botanist, was out, I think it's probably been a couple of summers ago, and he was amazed at how much of that particular rush we have on Boot Lake and Buttonbush. He said he usually finds little clumps of it, but I have acres and acres of the stuff. The next picture is pipewort, and at one point our pipewort population was larger than the population at Pipewort Pond. That also has not been seen recently, but it depends on how much water is in the wetland as whether or not it will grow. So conditions just haven't been favorable. The third picture is of dwarf umbrella sedge, and unless you are really looking for it and know what you're looking for, you're not going to find it. It's like this tall, and it's hidden under all of that other stuff. The last picture is when there is water in the wetland and all the conditions are right. That plant is called bladderwort. That's purple bladderwort. And it's kind of a fun plant in that it has sort of an algae-like body. It looks like it's floating there, but it has little bitty bladders on it. And it eats diatoms out of the water. So it's our carnivorous plant. So some more current history. About 2000, the year 2000, and I think 2010, we acquired about another 140 acres. That was the north acreage and the acreage on the east side. The EnviroCorps program worked with the city of Elkhart to have the property dedicated as a state nature preserve. And that article of dedication was originally signed in 2003, and when the new property was acquired, it was signed again in 2011. Originally, it was signed by Governor O'Bannon, I believe. And then about 2006, I think the Audubon Society declared it an important bird area. To date, I think there's 220 some species of bird that utilize the property at some point over the course of a year. In 2008, we had the big recession, as you all remember. And I don't know if you are familiar with the way AmeriCorps programs work, but initially they're funded by the federal government. And then as time goes by, the community that is hosting them is designed to take over supporting them. With that economic crash, the city did not have the resources to continue that program, and so it was discontinued. And Boot Lake sort of just sat there because an AmeriCorps program cannot take the place of any job description that the entity currently has. And so it didn't belong to anybody in the city. I mean, its care and maintenance didn't belong to anybody in the city. And so it just sort of sat there. Now, the city realized early on that once it was reverted to a natural state, that was sort of out of their wheelhouse, and it was sort of like a child that needed to go off to college. So they started talks with the county park system maybe even before 1999. It just took until 2017 for all of the conditions to be met for the county to accept the property. One of those sticking points was Williams Lane was not owned by the city. It was a private drive with permission to use by the city. And the county didn't want to take on a property that could potentially be landlocked if the property sold and the new owner wasn't amenable to sharing that road. So the county commissioners worked with the city and the neighbor, and we have legal easement to that road now. So in 2017, we took custody of the property, and I can show you some pictures of what we inherited. Thank you to the Community Foundation, the City Council, the County Council, and the County Commissioners, and the park system for all working together to make that transition happen. We were awarded some very generous grants. Some neighbors donated money so that we would have some money to start making repairs to the property. But these are some of the things we inherited. A lot of things were broken. There was a very nice composting toilet on the property that had just had the living roof. It had a strawberry and cactus roof on top of it. And they had just redone all of that, and somebody decided to burn it to the ground. So That is the plastic lumber dock on the far right. When we got it, it still had the walkway that went out, but the observation deck, that's the picture above it, had broken, and so the city opted to just remove it rather than trying to repair it. It's not easy to work in the wetland. Once again, since it wasn't monitored by anybody on a regular basis, people were depositing whatever they didn't want at home out there. So the parking lot was full of trash, and lots of things had broken because of the weather or malicious intent. So we started to work on fixing things up. This path, this limestone path that is accessible for everyone, was basically a deer trail. So I spent about 2 years getting all the trees out of it, grinding stumps, and then I had a contractor come in and lay fresh stone for us. The pictures on the right, those are an unexpected consequence of the pandemic that we had. So many people came out to the property then that they started creating trails of their own. So that's one of the trails they created, and I worked with DNR to legitimize it. Like I said, I can't do anything out there without DNR's permission in the protected area. So these are some fresh updates. The one in the center, the Industrial Arts program at Concord High School, built for me. And I call it my welcome kiosk. I keep all of the brochures for my properties and the rest of the county park properties in it. And then there are 4 red-roofed kiosks throughout the property. All of them have a map in them. The brochures have maps in them, so hopefully you don't get lost out there. And then there's sort of seasonal information, like sometimes it's on animals, sometimes it's on plants, sometimes it's on the prescribed burns we do out there. And I was visiting a state park and I saw a little lending library, and I thought we could use one of those. So I asked the family friend who does a lot of volunteering, and he built me a giant lending library. So you could crawl inside it, it's so big. I'm surprised nobody's done that yet. But that is very popular. I didn't think it would be quite so popular, but I have people who come out just to exchange books. So that's right off the parking lot. We have restrooms again. This one I bought in 2019. You can't burn it down. It's solid concrete. It is not a modern flush toilet. Neither of them are. Boot Lake does not have electric. I do not have water. So if you're going out to hike, make sure you take something with you. This little garden around this bathroom was the result of a small grant from a neighbor who contributes through the community foundation, and so I planted native species all around there. On this side, it's all native grasses. I've got some, I can't think of the name of it. There, I've got some cactus and wild petunias growing up here, and then there's a whole bunch of different stuff on that east side of it. And then the lending library sits next to it. And the new bathrooms were delivered last May, I think, or June. And they opened to the public right when it got cold. So very few people have used that one. But there are 2 stalls. It's just a different brand. They are vaulted toilets. It's nice. They have solar fans on the back. So the old comfort stations that we had that were rather odoriferous, unless there's no wind, we don't have that problem anymore. This is these are the overlooks. We pulled out that old plumber, that plastic lumber overlook to the wetland, and we replaced it with an easy dock. It goes out 100 feet into the wetland and has a nice I think it's like 20 feet wide. So if you have a telescope and you're a birder and want to stay a while and watch, there's plenty of room to do that. The picture above that, that is of the overlook on the east side of the Big Prairie. And at my last presentation, I met the father of the scout who built that, so that was really fun. He was asking, the only thing we've really had to do to it is it needed redecking. So it was also made out of a plastic lumber, and the decking part of it, the sun had just broken it down. I didn't want anybody to get hurt. So it now has a wood deck on it. And this one is a composite material it was made out of, also done by an Eagle Scout. It's way up on the north end, so you have to be in for a good hike to get to it. But it has had some minor repairs as well. The pavilion was built by the Contractors Association of Elkhart County back in 1994, when it was still with the city, and Elkhart EnviroCorps was taking care of it. But we've put a new steel roof on it. The vents have been replaced. It's been painted and had other minor repairs done to it. It's about 0.2 of a mile from the parking lot, but I have a hiking club that comes out and has potluck meals out there. So if you like to walk and you don't mind carrying your things, that's out there. This field is not protected under the nature preserve, so I have 20 acres at the south end. And this is because this used to be the city's tree nursery, and part of the deal for us assuming custody of it was that they would take their trees elsewhere, which they did, but they left me all the holes. So this mowed end down here, that's pretty safe to walk on. I've filled in and filled in and filled in holes. And we use that as overflow parking, like if the naturalists are having a hike out there or doing some sort of program, because our parking lot is about the size of this room, and it really only comfortably holds about 20 cars, but I've seen many, many more parked there, so that's there. That thing on the far right, that is my shipping container that holds my tractor and my equipment so that I have materials to work with out there. And way, way back is our new bathroom. So that's as far back to the north that I could put it because I couldn't put it in the nature preserve. So people wonder why we've got 2 bathrooms that are a half a mile apart. Well, that's until we acquire some new land, that's as far apart as I can get them.
Are they composting?
They are not composting toilets. They are just vaulted toilets, so when the vault gets full, then I hire a septic company to come and empty it. So with all of our updates, we did win the new facility award from Great Lakes Park Training Institute in 2021. That was a very nice award to get. And these are some things I'm looking to do this year in particular. So on the left, when you're going out to the easy dock, there is a slope that goes down to the wetland. And sort of in the middle of that slope is an old glass dump. So people have been pulling glass out of this area since 1994, and it just doesn't seem to end. So the picture on the right is a project we did at Cobus last summer where there was an erosion issue. We have an erosion issue here, so I'd like to use that same material. It's called geocell, and I want to just cover the glass and cover that with stone. And that will help slow materials going into the wetland, and it will allow people who cross-country ski a smooth surface to come back up in the summer, or in the winter when you ski. This is a dream. We have a nice concept for it, but we would like to separate the entrance road so it's one way. And it's kind of hard to see, but oops. So the entrance, this is Williams Lane. The entrance road would divide. It'd be one way. There would be parking pods. This is the parking lot now. There would be little parking pods that it would culminate with a pavilion that would be rentable to the public here, and then they would have the exit road that comes back out. Just waiting on that rich relative to pass away that I don't know about. Some of our challenges that are out there are invasive plants and animals. Don't think big animals, these are little animals. But some of our invasive plants, we have Siberian elm, we've got multiflora rose, I think that's autumn olive. I can't think of the name right now. This is Asian bittersweet. I'm sorry?
Reedgrass, do you think?
No, it's a bush honeysuckle. And this is Phragmites. So the outer ones are all terrestrial. This is a problem out in the wetland itself, and you see it all along the roads and ditches. It's just a great big grass that takes over and causes problems.
Sure, you see the one in the far lower left?
This one?
Yeah, that's
Asian bittersweet.
bittersweet?
Mhm.
That's an invasive.
Oh, yeah. It's a terrible, terrible invasive.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. These are some of our animals that are an issue. So I'm sure you're all aware that the emerald ash borer went through about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago and pretty much wiped out all of our ash trees. We now have spotted lanternfly in our county. I don't know if you've seen the billboards. There's at least 2 of them up. If you see it, please call DNR, and hopefully we can nip it in the bud. It prefers to host on Tree of Heaven, but if it doesn't have Tree of Heaven, it will make do with whatever it has access to. It's coming in on the rail cars. So it has sort of a brown tapioca-looking egg mass. Yeah. And it's not always where you can see it. It can be up high. So if you see, they're beautiful bugs, beautiful. But if you see them, call somebody. And the last ones are coming. They're in Ohio. They're the Asian longhorn beetle. And what these 2 don't eat, they will eat. So if you see that one, call somebody. This is one of the ways we try to battle those invasives. We do prescribed burning on our prairie sections. We have it divided into 3 areas, and each area is burned on a 3-year rotation. This year we are scheduled to burn the western half of the big prairie. That's usually the beginning of March. It takes a couple of hours. I hire a company called Blue Heron Ministries out of Angola to come out, and he leads the burns. There are a lot of phone calls that have to be made. There's some permitting that we have to do it, but it's kind of neat. The property's not closed to the public, but there will be people dressed in funny clothes that will tell you, don't go that way or do go this way. And it helps combat the woody invasives for the most part. Here are some more invasives that we have, because what would a property be without it? And so last year, I got another small grant from a very generous neighbor that came through the Community Foundation, and I was able to hire goats to go. I've been wanting to do this for like 5 years, but I couldn't find anybody who was doing the work, who had goats to hire. So these people are out of Willowbrook Farm in Cassopolis, and they typically bring a team of 20 goats out to work for about a week. They brought me all of their goats. And this is a picture of the west side of my parking lot at Boot Lake. Totally impassable. I couldn't even see where to begin to cut to fight the bittersweet. And the bittersweet was so heavy that it had gone all the way up the trees, and it works like a car crusher. It goes to the top and it just pulls it down to the ground. So these 40 little goats in 8 short days cleaned that up enough where I could actually do some work. So that's what we've been working on this winter, and I hope to start planting some native shrubs and forbs and grasses in there this spring and fall, depending on what it is I'm planting. So that was very exciting. The public loved it. I don't know if you're aware, this is where I get on my little stump speech. There is a terrestrial plant rule in the state of Indiana that went into effect in, I think, 2020. But the original rule lists 44 species that you are not allowed to sell, gift, barter, or, oops, wrong direction. Yeah, you can have it on your property, and I bet all of us have at least one of these species on our property because nurseries sold them for years. So here's a list of that first 44. I know my brother had Dame's Rocket in his yard. I've got plenty of invasives in mine. I've got lots of bush honeysuckle and multiflora rose around. But if you would like access to the current list of plants, there is a website you can visit. Oh, the calorie pair. People often ask, why isn't the calorie pair on that list? Well, that's because nurseries had so much calorie pair, it was going to be the end-all, be-all species of trees, and they planted it everywhere. Elkhart's got it everywhere. We planted it in neighborhoods. We planted it in our thoroughfares coming into the city from the toll road and the bypass. And so it was to allow the nurseries to eliminate their stock. So I anticipate it going on to that rule sometime soon. This is a new group that was formed last year thanks to an AmeriCorps member from the City of Goshen's Resiliency Department. And I'm one of its members. It's called the Invasive Species Partnership of Elkhart County, and it's to gather all the various groups that are working against invasives and putting native plants in together so we can focus our time, talent, and treasures a little better. There's contact information for it, and we are in our infancy, so we had 2 weed wrangles last year. One was in Middlebury, the other was at the Elkhart Environmental Center. I know we will have at least those 2 again this year, and I'm not sure where we will go beyond that this year. This is just a list of native nurseries in the area, the region. If you're looking to acquire new plants, please go native. And do you have any questions for me?
Poison ivy on the list?
Poison ivy is a native.
Super.
Could you put that list back out? I mean, I know you've got
The
questions.
list of,
Yeah, can you
oh,
read
this
that
one?
out?
Yeah.
Just, okay, so it takes a while to.
Stantec does a open house usually in July, I think. They just started doing it again last year. But they have a greenhouse, and they don't typically sell to, it's usually a commercial operation, but that one time of year, they have sort of what's left from the growing season. They had lots and lots of plants last year, and they have really nice information sessions that they do. Last year, I went to one, it was on relocating cemeteries. It was fascinating. Spence is in Muncie. We've used them for seed acquisition. Naturally Native, I can't think of her last name. Her first name is Jan. She used to be the president for our local chapter of Indiana Native Plant Society. She runs a nursery out of her house. She grows some things for the state specifically, but call first just make sure she's home. And she has all different kinds of native plants, wet, dry, and in between.
Can you go back to the websites that you had up there?
Mm-hmm. So there's Inspec.
I came out to see the sand cranes
Mhm.
last year, and there was a group of us that went out, and we could see them, but they were nesting way back. And then I drove home, and here's sand cranes out across the road in a cornfield.
Mhm.
And they stayed there for, there must have been 6 of them out there, and they stayed there for quite some time. Do they nest up there and then come out and feed somewhere and then go back to the?
Yes.
Like,
Yes, they are primarily vegetarians, and so they do nest in the wetlands. It's protected there. It's harder for predators to get to them. But yes, during the day, they are not typically in the wetland unless they're sitting on eggs. But yeah, they love the ag fields in the area.
Because they've been there a couple years. They've been coming.
Mhm.
So I thought, why am I driving out to the
If you want to see them in the wetlands, you need to be there dawn or dusk. So DNR does a count every year when they're migrating, and there was like 350 that they counted on the morning that they were out. So,
Can you look at one more that's
Mhm.
on the website?
this one?
Yes.
That's the one. I guess. She says that's the one.
Yes.
What time of year do the lupines bloom? Thank you.
Spring. So late May. Mhm. And the species that's up on the North Prairie, they are quite spectacular. They are much taller. It's a more western variety, and yeah, they are pretty amazing. They are scattered all throughout the Big Prairie, but it's a smaller variety, so you have to look a little harder for them.
The pear that you have pictured there, what was the type of pear you said?
Calorie pear?
Is that like a Bradford pear too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It has many common names.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And you will know it by the smell.
And you will know it by the
Yeah,
smell.
That's right.
Yes?
Well, I'm a cross-country skier, and we live not far away, so we love to zip over there.
Mhm.
But there's these berms that have rails.
Oh,
and
yes.
As a skier, I'm not always crazy going up and down those, because they kind of shoot you down, and I'm wondering, why can't you just bust those out right there where the trail is?
So originally the berms were put in to keep that sludge from going into the wetlands. And that new trail is the one she's talking about that goes over those berms. And it was requested of me by the public to leave that trail, that one trail, quote unquote rugged, which is kind of hard to do when you live on flat land. So I agreed with leaving the berm there. I did put the handrails in because I fell down one too many times. And but
It's slick with mud and everything, and I just
Yeah.
think it's kind of dangerous, and if you didn't need it anymore, I guess. But anyway, okay. Yeah.
so,
And, oh, one quick, I know there's muskrat
Mhm.
mounds out there, but there's like a really big one. Is that just
there is a
big one?
beaver mound
Okay.
way over on the east side.
Okay.
I have not seen the beaver,
Oh,
but it's obviously there.
okay, I was wondering.
I also found an ermine out there a number of years ago, a little white ermine. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was like just a juvenile weasel or something. And I just took a picture of it because I was working out, cutting invasives out of one of the prairies. And I took it back to the interpretive staff and said, "What is this thing?" And they were super excited, and they had me go out and find it again. So, which only took me a few hours. I was pretty impressed that I could find something 6 inches long. But
Wow.
yeah,
And there's pileated woodpeckers?
there are pileated woodpeckers out there.
Still bluebirds too?
Oh yes, there are lots of bluebirds. There used to be 60-some boxes throughout the preserve, but when we took it over from the city, DNR said, you know, that's really against our rules. So as they sort of fell apart, I just removed them. And I have 10 or 12 in the field where my equipment crate is. And there are some bat boxes, there's a couple of owl boxes around, but they're all on that southern 20 acres. So. Yes?
I've been seeing more like northwest Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
having a lot of bird deaths. Somebody just recently found like 20 or 30 cranes. Have you seen any of that?
I haven't seen any of that yet, so let's hope we don't see it. Yeah.
Is that from the flu, bird flu?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
We had this fall, I did not see this particular deer, but there was a deer that the sheriff's department came out to dispatch. It was on a weekend, and the officer involved thought it had blue tongue. So, but the cold temperatures kill that particular virus or bacteria. I don't remember which it is. So, well, thank you for listening to me ramble.
Thank you.